Chairman, thank you, and Senator Thune, thank you. I'm pleased to be a new member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, and it took a waiver that probably involved the majority leader's approval, so I'm pleased to now have that debt clear.
Yes, yes, you're all free.
I'm all free. Ms. Rollins, thank you very much for the conversation we had in the office. Thank you for your interest in serving. I want to run through, I hope, maybe 5 things that I want to talk about briefly, some of which we did talk in person. But first of all, it's been described here the dangerous and dramatic circumstances that farmers and ranchers find themselves in across the country. It's certainly true in Kansas. We have the same difficulties that everybody else has across the country with high input costs and low commodity prices. But I would add that almost 80% of the counties in Kansas are in a drought circumstance. And so you add to the problems that we can't grow a crop is dramatic. This is the least amount of wheat harvested in Kansas since 1961. And so there are significant challenges. It highlights what Senator Thune said about the importance of our risk management program, crop insurance, and it is perhaps as important as anything else that we will do. But our failure to pass a farm bill, and one of the reasons that I'm excited about to be on the Senate Agriculture Committee is this really does have to be our shot at getting the farm bill done. I can't imagine there can be another excuse, and we'll have an administration that's cheering us on, and Senator Bozeman and Senator Klobuchar are 2 people I think that we'll see work together, and I pledge to do my part to accomplish that. But as a result of no farm bill and all these other problems, we passed disaster assistance, economic and natural disaster. I just want to, again, remind you the timeliness. Our farmers are going to their bankers, have been to their bankers. There is not time for a farmer to have to wait to see what the consequences were. If we could predict, if you at USDA could tell farmers how the program is going to be administered, even before the checks are determined, that would be very valuable as they put it into their planning process, helpful to them and helpful to their banker. But I would remind you that in my view, and I think my colleagues, certainly my farmers at home, the way that disaster assistance was implemented in 2022 did not help the farmers who suffered the greatest losses. So the way that your predecessor implemented the disaster payments was very damaging, very discouraging, very disappointing. And we would ask you to do so to implement as the payments were determined in the 2018-2019 crop years. USDA dispersed the way that, and in addition to asking that question, you would also be complying with congressional law and intent.
Sir.
We worked hard to make clear that whoever the Secretary of Agriculture was in whatever administration, they couldn't go back and do it the way that provided almost very little disaster assistance. So that's number one, and if you happen to tell me yes.
I would, yes, and since we have Senator Thune still here, the quicker we can get our undersecretary approved in that lane, the quicker we will be able to move. Obviously, my confirmation as well, if approved, and I'll be honored. But we have already begun putting the team together that did this work under the President Trump first administration. Hopefully, my thought was that we won't have to reinvent the wheel. We can immediately begin moving. So that is my commitment, and again, I'll work all hours to ensure that that happens.
Thank you for that answer. I also want to again highlight a few words that I mentioned in our conversation in the office. The National Bio and Agro Defense Facility.
Yes, sir.
So in Manhattan, Kansas, near Kansas State University, is this national center created as a result of the fear of an introduction of some entity, something into our food supply system that would be a terrorist act, and do we have the capability scientifically to respond? And that facility is a $1.5 billion facility. It employs 400 people, and it has greater potential than what has been developed between the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Agriculture. And it has been transferred to USDA. It's your responsibility. And I would like if you could give me a point person now or a few days from now in which could become my point person on the National Bio-Agro-Science Facility.
Yes, sir. I can't do it right at this moment, but I will absolutely get that to you as soon as I have the ability to do that. I don't know if I have to wait to be confirmed. If I don't, you will get that right away. If I do, hopefully that will come upon confirmation very soon.
It seems to me that we should be working for your fast confirmation.
That seems like a really good idea.
Talked about. Let me highlight NIFA and ERS. So the Trump administration in the past decided that they wanted to help put departments, agencies, federal employees across the country, not totally centered here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And NIFA and ERS agencies were moved to Kansas City. And there is, I think what happened is in the circumstances here in Washington, D.C., there were 650 or 700 employees. I'm told that there are 400 employees now in Kansas City, but I'm also, at least by press reports, only 20% of the people are actually working in the office. So if we want to have the kind of consequence in reviving rural America, other places in the country, this is certainly a Kansas issue, but it's a Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, where sometimes our farm kids can't get a job back on the farm, can't return to the family farm, but they want to work in agriculture, or it's a spouse of somebody who's on the farm. And having those agencies and their employees in places like Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and Nebraska creates opportunities that would not otherwise exist. And so, in my view, the purpose of the move was defeated in the reality of telling people, well, you stay in D.C. and work from home. And that fits in with what a conversation a number of us had about actually getting USDA and other federal employees back in the office.
I 100% agree with you. I am extremely excited to get our workforce back into the office, whether it's here in Washington or out across the country. I think that in the business that we are in at USDA, a customer business, and being available for our customers, whether that is up in Senator Welch's Vermont or my Texas or wherever it is, your Kansas, that we have people in the office. So that will be a very big priority of mine.
Thank you. I'm involved in SAF, Renewable Aviation Fuel. We have introduced legislation, Farm to Fly. It has been made a part of the draft of both the House and Senate farm bills. And I would just ask your awareness that there's an opportunity for agriculture across the country as we begin to fuel the aviation industry. And Kansas, the air capital of the world, along with an agricultural center, has a great potential. But this is a potential for all farmers as we talk about how to make sure if we've lost a market due to a tariff or as they struggle, we need every market we can get. And this is, it also requires a good definition from 45Z in the Treasury Department, which you've said you will advocate for. Finally, we have an ARS center, a research center in Manhattan, Kansas. The University of Kansas State University has a tremendous amount of agricultural research, and we would like to see cooperation between the two, including potentially the co-location of their work. The facilities for ARS are nothing that they should be. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's a number of us including the chairman of the committee, who are members of the Appropriations Committee for the Department of Agriculture, and we want to help you get better facilities, and I would just like to highlight the need for cooperation. If we're going to build a better or expand a facility, can we do it in conjunction with the local university and get the bigger bang for the buck?
I encourage that discussion, obviously, as a proud agriculture degree from Texas A&M, and I'm still very close to the leadership there. In fact, our vice chancellor was hoping to be here today, but ended up having to give a speech to some livestock producers. I really look forward. My heart is with a lot of these universities, with all of our land grants across the country.
That was a very fine answer. I like the response, except there was something you should have said about the importance of other land grant universities, for example, Kansas State University.
For example, Kansas State, Senator. Yes. No,
Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'm excited to continue that work with you.
And let me tell Mrs. Kerwin, thank you for raising a great daughter.
Oh, thank you, sir.